We all have a what, and we don't understand the why. God always has a why behind the what. God always has a why behind the what. He doesn't waste a hurt. He can take a trial and make it a triumph. He takes what the enemy meant for harm and He creates it for good. He will take a challenge and He will develop your character through it. And He will take your fears and He will build your faith. So hold on to that. The second thought. I don't have to understand the why to trust God in the what. I don't have to understand the why to trust God in the what. Proverbs 3, 5, 6 says this. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek His will in all that you do, and He will show you which path to take. Okay, easy enough to be said, harder to put in application. All right? So here's a couple of questions that you can ask yourself when life gets hard. Anybody's life hard right now? Okay. We all face difficult stuff. Okay. So here's the first question. Now, we're talking about a change of perspective. So when everything kind of piles in on you and your life gets difficult, what we do is we stress the now what and we go, now what? Anybody ever said that? Now what? Kids come in bothering you, now what? What else can happen to me? Now what? Now what? And we emphasize now what? Let me read verse 12. And I want you to know, my dear brothers and sisters, that everything that has happened to me has helped spread the good news. I don't understand. This isn't good. I don't like the situation that I'm in. But look what Paul says. Everything that has happened to me here has helped spread the good news. Some versions say advance. Now, if you've got a military background, what advance means is move forward or clear out the obstacles. So he's saying whatever has happened to me is helping clear the obstacles away so that God's gospel can be spread. Dusty texted me this scripture this week. And I always like it when I get scriptures from my kids because it means to me that God is speaking to them, so I get all jacked up. And it really fits so well, and it really kind of helped propel this part of the lesson. And this is what it was. It was John 13:7. And it says, Jesus replied, "You don't understand now what I'm doing, but you will." You don't understand now what I'm doing, but you will. You see, God specializes in working through things that we don't get. He will take an obstacle and He will turn that obstacle into a what? An opportunity. He will take your setback and turn that into your set up. He wants to be glorified and He wants you to do it. He wants us to make the difference in the world. And your prison can become your pulpit. You may not see it, but God can change your perspective. Anybody ever seen these? Can you see that okay? These are those 3D hidden image pictures. Anybody ever good at those? You're an art teacher, of course you're good at it. Yeah. You guys shut those lights off. They're all going to shut them off. We'll look at it for just a minute. You can do whatever you want.
It's me. I don't.
Oh, you're asking? It's a rhetorical question, can I? Okay. Is anybody besides Emmy, because Emmy's already said that she's good at these. Anybody ever good at these? Terrible. Terrible, terrible, terrible. And what they tell you to do is they tell you that the secret is looking so intensely that you look through it. Now, I think some of them said, get real close to the image, touch your nose to them, and they kind of gradually walk away, and then the images will appear. Ever have I been able to do this. Ever. There's something buried inside of here. Can you see it? No? There's something buried inside of there that is an image. That's all right. That's all right. It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be. If you look long enough and hard enough, you can finally see what's buried inside of you. But you've got to look through this. When life gets hard for us, this is what life begins to look like. Is this. See where I'm going? And if you look long enough and hard enough, you can finally see what was always there. What are we talking about? If you look past the mess of your life, and you look so intently and so focused on Jesus Christ, then you will finally begin to see what was always there. So here's a change of perspective. Instead of looking at your circumstances and saying, now what? How about we say it like this? Now what? Because I have a change of perspective. Now what? What do you want to show me through my mess? What do you want to do in me through my mess? What do you want to do through me through my mess? And how do you want to use this to accomplish that? See, it's all about perspective. It's all about perspective. You go to football. You're going to turn my back on. Yeah. I want them to pay attention to me and not to that, because they will. They'll focus on that. See where I'm going with that? If you look intently enough, you'll see what was always in front of you. Verse 13. For everyone here, including the whole palace guard, knows that I am in chains because of Christ. Now, because Paul's got a different perspective, this is what it says. I'm not chained up, I'm chained to. My heart has always been to preach the gospel in Rome. I have a change of perspective. Now you have chained me to 4 different Roman officials. They are my captive audience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Because I have a change in what? I have a change in perspective. They are the leaders who will influence Rome. You have given me an opportunity to preach through my imprisonment. So who's the real prisoner? Is it Paul?
It's the guard.
It's the guard.
Yeah.
It's a change in perspective because he doesn't look at what he sees in front of his face. He looks beyond to see what was always there. His thought was that I'm going to go into Rome and preach the gospel. God's purpose was to chain him to the leaders of Rome so that they would have a captive audience in him sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 4 different Roman guards each and every day. Leaders in the community. So, I will tell you what I told Carrie this morning. You take Satan's best shot and you use that power against him. Listen to me. You stand up and you take his best shot. And all of that power that he uses to try to knock you down, you turn it around and you use it against him. Your test today will be your testimony tomorrow. Look at at verse 14. And because of my imprisonment, most of the believers here have gained confidence and boldly speak God's message without fear. Why do you think that is? Yes. He's paving the way. He is placed in a situation where a lot of people would fold, and he's using Satan's power against him. So, instead of looking at your mess and saying, now what? You look and say, okay, now what? Second question. When life gets hard. So what? So what? You ask, now what? Then you ask, so what? Verse 15 through 18. It's true that some are preaching out of jealousy and rivalry, but others preach about Christ with pure motives. They preach because they love me, for they know I have been appointed to defend the good news. Those others do not have pure motives as they preach about Christ. They preach with selfish ambition, not sincerely, intending to make my chains more powerful to me. What does it matter? What does it matter? What matters is that Christ is being taught. Everybody got a pen? I want you to write this down. If you don't have a pen, I'll put it on something where you can get it. Okay? This is good. Tis gar plan. Anybody ever heard it? Tis gar plan. T-I-S G-A-R-P-L-E-N. Any Fantasy Island buffs? Who knows what Fantasy Island is? Remember the little tattoo?
Yeah.
You plain. It's that. It's not plan. It's plan. Tis gar plan. You know what it means? It's Greek. And it means so what? What does it matter? I am going to have joy no matter what. Tis gar plan. 100 years from now, what you're going through right now, is it going to matter?
Right.
Or 100 years from now, how you handle what you're going through, is that going to matter? Is my wife's cancer going to matter 100 years from now? No. She'll be home with the Father 100 years from now. But how she handles it in spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ now, that will matter. Tis gar plan. It's a change in perspective. I will find joy no matter what. It frees us to focus on what is important. But we waller in everything that's not. Paul doesn't. It changes our perspective. Verse 20 through 22. For I fully expect and hope that I will never be ashamed, but that I will continue to be bold for Christ as I have been in the past. And I trust that my life will bring honor to Christ whether I live or die. For to me, living means living for Christ, and dying is even better. But if I live, I can do more fruitful work for Christ, so I really don't know which is better. So what's Paul saying? He goes, I win either way. If I die while I'm in prison, I get to go where I long to be. Win. But if I'm saved and saved to here, and I continue to do the work that God has called me to do, then that's even better. Not necessarily better for me, but better for you. That's a win. Tis gar plan. I find joy no matter what my circumstance. While Paul wrote this, he was waiting to stand trial to determine whether he lived or whether he died. Now let me ask you a question. Would you write a letter of love to people around you if you were in this situation? Don't lie to me. Probably not. Probably not. Because those what's in our life, we don't find joy in those. Because we don't know how to have a change of perspective. Tis gar plan. He was locked up on death row. This is what he says. I'm torn between